Chapter 11. The Cypress Grove Ambush, New Orleans, July 1925. The Lower Ninth Ward was a world apart from the glittering French Quarter, a patchwork of shotgun houses, overgrown lots, and cypress groves that whispered with the ghosts of the city's past. The air here was thicker, heavier, the scent of swamp water and moss mingling with the faint tang of coal smoke from the nearby rail yards. Julien Dubois moved through the shadows, his revolver in one hand, the silver medallion Father Antoine had given him clutched in the other. The medallion's faint hum pulsed against his palm, a small comfort against the darkness that seemed to press in from all sides. The crescent moon hung low, its light barely penetrating the canopy of cypress trees, casting jagged shadows that danced like specters in the humid night. At 35, Julien was a man on the edge, his Creole heritage, his Catholic faith, and the supernatural reality he could no longer deny tearing at the seams of his soul. The vampire's pursuit from St. Louis Cathedral, their hissed threats, "We'll find you, marked one," echoed in his mind, a reminder that he was the target of their ritual, the marked one tied to the old magic. The spirit girl from his past, her hollow eyes in the bayou, had marked him at 15, and now, 20 years later, that moment was catching up with him. His hand brushed the rosary in his pocket, a reflex that offered little solace, the prayers of his childhood drowned out by the weight of what he was facing. Celeste Moreau stayed close, her practical blouse and trousers blending into the darkness, her auburn hair tucked under a scarf to avoid drawing attention. At 28, she was a firebrand, her green eyes sharp with determination despite the exhaustion etched into her features. Her small derringer was gripped tightly in her hand, her purse, holding the 1895 case file, and her notepad, slung across her shoulder. She'd seen a vampire, fought one, and survived, but the reality of their existence still churned in her gut, a mix of fear and fascination that fueled her journalist's instinct to uncover the truth. She glanced at Julien, her expression a mix of resolve and concern, sensing the storm brewing beneath his guarded exterior. "We're close," Julien whispered, his Creole accent soft but tense as he pointed to a faint glow ahead, flickering through the cypress trees. "Father Antoine said Mama Zora's hidin' near the old grove. That light, it's gotta be her." Celeste nodded, her voice low, meant for him alone. "Let's hope she's got answers," she said, her grip tightening on the derringer. "That medallion. It held them off at the cathedral, but we need to know how to use it, how to stop Leroux for good." They moved forward, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth, the air growing colder as they approached the grove. The glow came from a small clearing, where a campfire burned low, its flames casting flickering light across a makeshift camp. Mama Zora sat on a log, her gnarled hands working a mortar and pestle, her red tignon a stark contrast to the darkness around her. At 60, she was a pillar of wisdom and mystery, her sharp eyes glinting as she looked up, sensing their approach before they spoke. "Julien Dubois," Mama Zora said, her voice a gravelly drawl, her gaze shifting to Celeste. "And the journalist girl. I knew you'd come. The spirit's been screamin' your name all night." Julien stepped into the clearing, the medallion glowing faintly in his hand, its light casting a soft sheen across his face. "We need your help, Mama Zora," he said, his voice steady but urgent. "The vampires, they're after me, callin' me the marked one. Father Antoine gave us this medallion, said you blessed it. We need to know how to use it, how to stop Leroux's ritual." Mama Zora's eyes narrowed, her hands stilling as she took the medallion from Julien, her fingers tracing its engraved symbols, a cross and a crescent moon. "This is old magic," she said, her voice low, reverent. "Blessed with the power of the Loa, meant to ward off blood drinkers. But it ain't enough on its own. Leroux's ritual, it's near complete. He's talking souls to break his curse, to become something worse than a vampire. He needs the marked one's soul to finish it, your soul, Julien. That spirit girl you saw. She was a warning, a sign you're tied to the old magic." Julien's jaw tightened, the weight of her words settling like a stone in his chest. "How do we stop him?" he asked, his voice raw, his Creole accent thickening with emotion. "I ain't letting him take me or anyone else." Mama Zora stood, her beads clinking softly as she moved to a small altar nearby, adorned with offerings to the Loa, rum, flowers, a small skull. She pulled a vial of dark liquid from a pouch, her voice a whisper as she handed it to Julien. "This is a potion, blood and herbs, blessed by Baron Samedi himself. Mix it with holy water, anoint the medallion, and it'll burn 'em like fire. But you gotta get close to Leroux, closer than you want. And you gotta be ready to pay a price, the Loa don't give without talking. Celeste stepped forward, her green eyes sharp with determination. "What kind of price?" she asked, her journalist's curiosity cutting through the tension. And where do we find LaRue? He's gone to ground after the party. Mama Zora's gaze shifted to Celeste, a flicker of respect in her eyes. The price ain't clear till the moment comes, she said, her voice heavy with warning. Could be blood, could be a memory, could be a piece of your soul. As for LaRue, he's in the old cemetery, St. Roche's. That's where he'll finish the ritual, under the next full moon, 2 nights from now. He's got his coven there, guardin' him. Before Julian could respond, a rustling in the trees cut through the night, followed by a low, guttural growl that sent a chill down his spine. The campfire flickered, its flames dimming as the air grew colder, heavier, charged with a malice they'd felt before. Julian's hand snapped to his revolver, the medallion glowing brighter in his other hand, while Celeste raised her derringer, her green eyes darting to the shadows. They found us, Julian whispered, stepping in front of Celeste, his body a shield as he scanned the grove. Mama Zora, get back, hide if you can. Mama Zora muttered a prayer under her breath, her hands moving quickly to scatter protective herbs around the campfire, but her eyes were grim. They're drawn to you, Julian, she said, her voice urgent. The marked one, they can smell your spirit. Go now. The shadows erupted, 3 vampires emerging from the trees, their pale skin and glowing red eyes a stark contrast to the darkness. Their fangs glinted in the firelight, their claws extended as they hissed, their voices a chorus of menace. The marked one. Give us the marked one. They moved with a predator's grace, circling the clearing, their movements too fast, too fluid. Julian fired his revolver, the gunshot echoing through the grove, the bullet hitting one vampire in the chest, drawing a hiss of pain but not stopping it. Celeste fired her derringer, the shot grazing another's shoulder, black blood oozing from the wound. The medallion flared in Julian's hand, its light burning the nearest vampire as it lunged, its skin sizzling as it recoiled with a shriek. But there were too many, and they were closing in. We can't fight 'em all, Celeste shouted, her voice sharp with adrenaline as she grabbed Julian's arm, pulling him toward the trees. We need to run, head for the river, lose Em in the swamp. Julian nodded, his heart pounding as he shoved the vial of potion into his pocket, the medallion still glowing in his hand. He fired another shot, covering their retreat as they bolted into the grove, the cypress trees closing around them like a shroud. The vampires gave chase, their hisses and growls echoing through the night, their claws slashing at the air as they gained ground. Julian and Celeste ran, their breaths coming in short gasps, their hands brushing as they navigated the tangled roots and muddy ground. The river loomed ahead, its murky waters a dark mirror under the crescent moon, and Julian spotted a small skiff tied to a makeshift dock, its oars resting against the hull. There, he shouted, pulling Celeste toward it, his voice rough with urgency. They scrambled into the boat, Julian cutting the rope with his pocket knife as Celeste pushed off, the skiff lurching into the current just as the vampires reached the water's edge. The creatures snarled, their red eyes glowing with rage, but they hesitated at the river's edge, the running water seeming to repel them, a weakness Julian hadn't known about until now. One of them lunged, its claws grazing the skiff's hull, but the current pulled them away, the boat drifting into the darkness as the vampires' hisses faded into the night. Julian collapsed against the oars, his chest heaving, the medallion still glowing faintly in his hand. Celeste sat across from him, her green eyes wide with relief, her derringer still clutched in her trembling hand. We made it, she whispered, her voice shaking as she reached out, her hand brushing his. You okay? Julian nodded, his dark eyes meeting hers, a mix of exhaustion and resolve in his gaze. Yeah, he said, his voice gruff, his hand squeezing hers for a moment before letting go. But we're not done. St. Roche's cemetery, 2 nights from now, that's our chance to end this. We've got the medallion, the potion. We can do this. Celeste nodded, her expression fierce despite the fear lingering in her eyes. Together, she said, her voice a promise, her hand resting on his arm as the skiff drifted down the river, the cypress trees a silent witness to their escape. The night closed in around them, the rivers whisper a mournful song, and Julian felt the weight of the future pressing down, the ritual LaRue, the price Mama Zora had warned about. New Orleans was a city of shadows, and they were heading straight for the heart of its darkness.